Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Hello.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Valerie.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Tom.
And here she is right now. Awesome. This is Jessica, guys. Hello. Everybody, this is Jessica from ARPA.
Hi, Jessica. How are you?
Eric Nelson. Nice to meet you. She's a wealth of knowledge on all of
Hi,
our
Valerie.
information.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Okay, where is convenient?
Right here would be great.
Okay.
That's okay. That way you're closer as we go through some of these ARPA rules. Now, I didn't have you on the agenda officially because I got added in late.
Of course, yeah.
So Mr. Nelson was mentioning that.
Any questions?
Yeah. So when anybody talks, just too, you have to hit this right in front of you so it's green, so it gets recorded, just so you folks know. So when you do go to speak, just hit.
Hi. I heard you.
Just give it 1 minute.
I actually grabbed one online.
You have one?
Yeah, thank you though.
These were the 3 emails that I received back about recency rules
Okay.
for the trust that you're asking about what the folks are looking to do.
Okay, great.
You can see if that aligns to the compliance piece of ARPA. I was just lightly touching upon that we have deadlines that we have to meet that are important.
Is there an extra one of those, George?
Yeah, absolutely. And I give him enough copies in the manager's office.
Okay, we need one more. This,
He can have the last one.
okay.
Absolutely.
This one.
Do we have enough? Because I could always read this after.
I think we do.
Okay.
As long as Eric's all set. You got him, Eric?
I think we are.
And I can email these to Kathy. Let's give another minute for the manager.
Now, how does this work? Does she see the back of my head, or is it the cameras are sort of all from different angles?
Everything comes right down. This is how we look right here.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So this is us all on camera right here. Is that okay?
Of course. No, I was just curious.
Yeah.
There's so many cameras.
Yeah. This room's full of them.
There's a lot of people attended outside.
A lot of the kids, yeah.
Really, yeah, really good showing.
It's a good one. The kids love to climb all over the trucks and stuff
Yeah,
too.
yeah, it was really cute. We were laughing because we were trying to do spreadsheets and we were like
One eye out the
crossing
window.
eyes, trying to listen with the music is really loud on that side. There's good music too.
It's right out my window. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's only tough when they're cooking stuff out there, and then I start
Yeah,
getting like,
yeah.
oh, okay. I'm gonna poke it in the manager's office real quick. Yeah, it'll be right back. quorum, because we have 3 of us here. So we can make votes and they stick with you 3. So we're okay. Just want to be respectful to the manager and not start without him. But he might be too busy for now.
Right. So is your green thing that you're on?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Hit this so it gets recorded. Good afternoon, folks. This is the City of Lowell Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board meeting. Today, September 17th, 2025. My name is George Coloris, and I'll be administrator. I'm going to take a roll call. Valerie Opara,
Here.
Ty Cha,
Here.
Eric Nelson,
Here.
Kathy Mercado,
Here.
and we have a special guest today, Jessica Finaccio from ARPA. Welcome, everybody. Can I get a motion? Start the meeting.
Motion to call meeting to order, please.
I get a motion to start the meeting?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Meeting begins. Like to get a motion to approve the minutes from the August 20th meeting?
Move for approval.
Second.
Second by Valerie Opara. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. We have any continued business from the last meeting? Anybody have anything they need to discuss from the last meeting?
No.
Okay. We also have a special guest today. Her name is Kathy Mercado from the Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership. She'll be taking Mayor Daniel Rourke. She'll be his appointee. So we're going to vote. Hi, Kathy. Can you hear us there?
Aye.
Can I get a motion to accept her as the...
Motion to accept Kathy Mercado in place of
Mayor Daniel? I get a motion on the floor from Ty Cha to accept Kathy Mercado in replace of Mayor Daniel Rourke. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, folks, we're going to move to some new business that we have here. And it's about the visions and goals sent to myself, the administrator for the Affordable Housing Trust, and what direction we want to go in. And all 3 emails that we got pretty much leaned on the same thing, and it's the development of affordable housing. The goal is the creation of affordable housing units by supporting the development of new affordable home ownership units for households within the income of less than 100% of the area AMI, basically using the funding agent model. The other is the preservation of affordable housing, and then to promote the promotion of home ownership. Any discussion on that?
So, George, could we have some, do we know what those numbers are and kind of what the targets are?
Yes, the fund itself has you can help it. The fund itself has $3.3 million in it. And we also get another 10% from CPA, which was another, let me take a look at that. Made it a total of 3.5.
I think that's the document, yep, that you have. So, is that okay?
Yes, please do.
So, 3.3 million is the ARPA funding money. I only do ARPA, but I believe that there's the $100,000 if I.
110,000 is CPA as well.
110, okay, so 110,000 for the CPA. And was there any other funds in there, or was that was?
We also have $5,000 from the vacant storefront fee for a total of $3,315,000. And then our operating costs were a total of $10,000, leaves us with a budget balance of $3,305,000.
So, thank you. So that's helpful. So, but with regards to the development of affordable housing, so the first goal is creation of units for households with income of less than 100% of the area AMI using the funding agent model. And then similarly, households with less than the 80% of the AMI. I guess I'm looking for some detail of background on what those numbers are. So who qualifies? What's 100%?
At our last
what's
meeting, we had
80%?
brought the community develop, Elliot Yaffer had talked about the area median income in the city of Lowell being, what, $81,000, I think he said? I'd have to go back to the notes and take a look, and I can look that up right now, Mr. Nelson, if you give me 1 second.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I have the detailed information with respect to the income limit of 2025 published by HUD effective April 1st, 2025.
Can you press your button,
Oh,
please?
sorry. So yes, I do have the information on the income limit. So if we're looking at 80% of median income for a family of 4, it's $104,550. And in the ARPA funding example that we have from Arlington, it's ranging from 60% to 100. But what I just gave you is 80%. But 100% of median income for 4 is 136,900. So that's what we're looking at.
So related to that, when we talk about the creation of these units, do we have any kind of inventory in the city? Like the number of units that currently qualify, any of those in the development pipeline, in the approval pipeline? Is there a way to expedite approval to meet some of these goals?
We can expedite, I don't have that answer right now, Mr. Nelson, but I can get that, how many units are available.
That'd be great.
Total that are affordable. I don't have that answer right now, but I can research that and look that up. Yes, please do.
And if this is helpful, so at this juncture, if I were in your shoes, I would want to focus on, so kind of since you're just starting the trust, but we also have a very short amount of time to do what we need to do with the ARPA funding. I know that you guys had discussed at your last meeting making a decision on the funding model, the step 8 in the the active initiator, and you guys had that conversation at the last meeting. So you have the Board of Trustees operate on one of 3 ways. So you have 1 as a funding entity that solicits project ideas to consider for funding, 2 as an active initiator of projects and programs, or 3 as a hybrid of both. So I have the ARPA hat, not this hat. This one's George's hat. But I know that he talked a lot about this, and that this was something that was important to you guys to make that decision. So basically, that decision will cover you for what you want to do moving forward. So that's sort of step 1 before you decide on specifics of AMI. So in your trust, you might decide that you want to do a certain percentage number of AMI moving forward, but I would recommend not settling on a definite number at this time, because with the ARPA funding, it really depends on what you're trying to do, what number would make sense depending on the units and depending on what kind of development it is and what other funding they have and a bunch of other things that kind of get put together as a package. So for example, there might be a development where only a certain percentage are affordable, and then the AMI could be lower. And then you say get a developer who's willing to make 50% of a whole building affordable housing, which would be unusual but great. And then you're going to want to say, okay, well then, because they might not be able to make the numbers work at that lower AMI, you say, okay, well then now let's say, okay, we're going to compromise because you're doing way more units. So it depends on how you want. There's a bunch of different ways to do the same thing that you're trying to accomplish. So I would say if I was in your shoes, which I'm not a voting member, but to keep yourself flexible, because in that way the best opportunity that could come forward with these funds, given that we have such a short amount of time and a lot of rules for the ARPA funding, you'll be able to be flexible and make sure that that funding is spent on time before the deadline. So, for example, if you are granting out the money, typically the grants will have a lower AMI. If you're having the money out to be borrowed, more often that's a higher AMI. So it doesn't necessarily mean one or the other. I'm just saying what is more commonly found. So does
And
that
I,
make-
yes, total sense. And I had reached out to the Massachusetts Housing Partnership and asked if we could operate in both models. And they said a place like Lowell, they encourage that. So we're gonna try to go after both models. I think one of the issues is the timing of it. That we may not have the ability, the time to act as an active initiator to find a project and build from ground up. That we need to find something that's already shovel-ready or maybe something that's already existing.
So just to back up, because there might have been, I don't know how far you guys went into this at the last meeting. I read the meeting minutes but not watched the video. For those different options, so your active initiator, meaning that you're, like, the City of Lowell Affordable Housing Trust is actually going out and you're buying the property and you're, doing what needs to be done to make it affordable, versus soliciting bids from other people who are doing it. So both of those are completely different scenarios that are so different in every way, but they also depend on certain terms, and there's a whole level of complexity. So for example, say it's mixed use, then there's certain rules that would apply to that. So basically, this decision isn't a decision specifically with the ARPA funds. It's only a decision of what you guys want to do with your housing trust moving forward. So I would recommend, because Lowell has so many different opportunities that will be, aside from ARPA, that will come to you after ARPA is all done, that since you can choose a hybrid of both, it's sort of like tools in the toolbox. It's always great when you're doing a home project and all of a sudden you don't have the right tool for what you need. You'd rather have more tools than less. You can choose both and not use both of them for ARPA.
I got a question pertaining to ARPA specifically, because we only have, based on the information here, we only have a short period of time to spend, not commit, but actually
Yes.
spend. And one of the question is, because it's federal funding, will it trigger prevailing wage, will it trigger Davis-Bacon?
It's a great question. Yeah. So there are certain aspects of similar items
Yes.
that do apply to housing. So it doesn't apply to certain parts of ARPA. And then, so basically each scenario has its own exclusions within ARPA. So it depends on which that you're planning on doing. So to give you an example, because that sounds confusing, I know. So one of the things that you're allowed to do with ARPA funding is, say there was a great project that was under an existing project that the City of Lowell already does. So for example, HOME is one of the program names, CDBG is another one of the program names. So they allow you to, something is called presumptively eligible, which means we're gonna assume that what you're doing is ARPA allowable if you follow the existing rules for an existing federal program that the city already uses, or that the city doesn't use, but is an existing federal program. Like a safe harbor, basically. You can put on the hat of the program and do that. So if the program that you were sort of utilizing or masquerading as is subject to Davis-Bacon, then we'd want to get a legal opinion as to whether the exclusions for ARPA still hold, given that we're using the regulations of a program that does not exclude it. But there are a bunch of options that aren't fitting into that hat that we have as well. So it might end up being that is the more flexible, easier development to do. So basically what George and I had spoken about was sort of having a more general conversation with you guys here tonight. And, I know that you guys were going to make a determination on the active initiator versus the other one, which category you want it to be in. And then at a future meeting, we're going to bring you some concrete, specific options relative to ARPA that are basically the easiest way for us to move forward, based on the fact that ARPA is extremely complex in the number of rules that apply. And given that we have such a short amount of time, and it's amazing for the city of Lowell because of the fact that you guys started the trust and that you have this and that it didn't have it before and now you have an affordable housing trust, which is excellent moving forward. But a lot of the other funding, when you're doing this complex of a project, might have been started earlier in ARPA in 2021. Now we're in 2025 and the program ends 2026. So obviously, it needs to be a very certain set of circumstances for a developer to be able to adjust to this timeframe. So like, for example, if it was something that wasn't already created, wasn't already planned, wasn't already a complete and approved project, would be extremely difficult for us
We don't have time to
finish
do that.
So because of that, we've done a lot of talking, really quite a lot. We've met a lot, and what we've discussed is some other options that would be easier, which we'll bring to you once we've done some more due diligence to confirm that they are the lowest hanging fruit for you guys to make the most of the money and to, accomplish your goals.
We can keep both models open for the Affordable Housing Trust, but because we were funded with ARPA one time, we have to move quickly to follow the guidelines of ARPA. That's what's going on. So we can keep both open going down the road, but for now, we have to move quickly because the money came from ARPA. We have to follow their rules.
That's why I'm raising that question, because there might be project in the pipeline. So within our city.
Right.
Okay, that's already planned, ready to go. But if that funding become part of the construction and trigger Davis Bacon, then it become an issue.
Right.
So the project itself, some of the project that in the pipeline may not getting into, but some of the projects are a precondition for the Davis Bacon or prevailing wage if it's state.
Right.
In this case, we have to identify which project and fit within what under ARPA criteria then, right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
thank you.
The things that we discussed was balancing, yes, we have this time frame, but you still do also have your goals of trying to get as many affordable housing units out of these, this limited one-time use funds, right? So the idea is looking at the ways where it is possible for us to move as quickly as we need to move. And of those options, which ones are feasible once we've done some more due diligence. And once we get through that list, we have some ideas in mind. Then we say, okay, I'm confirming that there's no, somewhere in here, some clause that makes it an issue with ARPA. And then from there, we're saying, okay, which one of these options has, whatever combination your board is interested in, whether it be the highest number of units or, the best AMI or a combination of both wherever possible. So those are kind of the things that, we might end up bringing you one, we might end up bringing you two. And we'll be able to say, okay, this we know that we can do in this time frame. Because of the ARPA rules, the way that it works is you have the funds obligated past the deadline and you do need to use it, or it's potentially subject to a clawback.
Quick question.
Valerie?
You have mentioned that the rules are very complex. Is there a way for us to identify as soon as possible what projects, like Tom mentioned, that are in the process, like right away, so they can determine which projects would be eligible for the ARPA program?
Yes, definitely. We're sort of doing the boot camp version of that process right now. George has been excellent. We've been meeting like late into the evenings after work to go through all of these things and figure out, okay, well, let's start from the beginning and then look at, I explained to him what the ARPA housing specific options were. I got up to speed with what, you guys were interested in doing. And then from there, we've been, kind of moving through all the different scenarios. And we were joking, I don't know how many times we said, okay, you're the developer and this is the bank, and picture it's, $1 million here and net asset of this, and figuring out different scenarios. Is this an eligible use? And that is the language for ARPA, is eligible use. So basically we have some portions of ARPA where they will say, if you do X, Y, and Z, we are gonna presume it's eligible. Presumptive eligibility is definitely ideal because that means we don't have to, worry about if it's something that, might have some aspect of it that will have an issue with the Treasury, because we'll have an audit at the end of all of this, so we are, cognizant of that. But the other focus is saying, okay, well, we want to make the most of these one-time funds. How do we balance getting the money out in the most expeditious way, but with also using it in the way that you guys would like? So that is where all of our discussions have really been on.
So to clarify, the initiator process, that's just kind of an arrow in our quiver that we can keep. That is not ARPA related, that's housing trust related.
So actually, both options, the funding entity and active initiator, are both allowable with ARPA in certain circumstances. So it really depended on what we were doing and how we were doing it. So it is possible that we come to you and say, hey, we're here as a funding entity, or we're here as an active initiator. So because of that, for ARPA, it makes sense to do both. But I think it also, in our conversations, makes sense to do both, just for a general standpoint of you never know what opportunity or what funding you
Sure.
might have years down the road, and it's better to have both options as what the housing trusts use, and maybe not use one, right? There might be years where you only use one versus the other, but you'll have more tools in your toolbox.
No, I think that flexibility makes sense, but I think initially getting this up and going, and given kind of the pace we've gone so far, and I missed the last meeting, I was at college drop-off. Meeting these deadlines that we keep talking about would be tough for volunteers as active initiators, unless staff was bringing us, projects to look at.
Agreed.
I think, the staff can't get us projects to consider soon enough to meet these deadlines.
Mention that too.
And then, can we get further detail on the two different deadline dates? And is there different things that we need to meet for each of those deadlines? And is it allocating the proceeds, or is it project completion, or is there further
Commitment.
detail?
And
on
I'm
that?
sorry, which deadlines?
So it says
what
the
you're-
deadline dates of 6/26 and 9/26 for spending ARPA funds to
show you
comply
right
with
there.
guidelines and regulations.
26?
Do you remember we talked, on the deadline, we talked about having, so you could do the compliance piece at the meeting?
If there's kind of like an ARPA outline for dummies,
Oh, I see.
that would be
I see.
super helpful.
So,
Or a calendar of all these dates that we need to
okay,
be
yes.
cognizant of.
So the main date of focus that we had previously was the obligation. So that was 12/31/2024, which was when we, long story short, needed to say, this isn't just what we're planning on doing, this is what we're actually doing with all of our $76 million in ARPA. That deadline is already passed, and that included the $3.3 million for the Housing Trust. The next deadline that is relevant to you is 12/31/2026. That is the technical legal last day, New Year's Eve, for us to have spent all of our ARPA funding citywide. Now, because of the fact that we have, a couple hundred projects, ARPA projects citywide, and because after each project ends, we need to do compliance reports and a number of other things, we need to balance all of our books and reconcile, and a number of other accounting procedures before that date, it would be extremely difficult to, do a bunch of spending like in December, never mind 12/31. So that means for the housing, obviously, because you guys are a big block of money and because we're under a tight time restraint, it might be that some of the goals that we had for spending the money earlier instead of later might not apply to you. It might be that we're sort of, skidding into home base here. So if, for example, the right project was something that it was going to be taking until say that September date or even October, like that is still something that is very doable for us. And if it, we were even later than that, then we will have to work with that because we can't, not use the funds. So we will have to make that work. But the idea being is that if we find something that we are able to do in a shorter amount of time, because remember, the way that developers are doing their construction is oftentimes in, spring, and then they're starting to slow down at a certain point in the fall, right? So the idea being is our sort of stretch goal is those earlier dates in 2026. But if it ends up needing to be later, then that's something that I can accommodate. But wherever possible, we want the earliest date, but we're under a really big time crunch. So we'll just have to do the best that we can.
So is there an inventory or a pipeline of opera projects in the pipeline that the city is working on now?
So we have, you can go onto ClearGov on the city's website. So if you go to the ARPA webpage, you'll find extensive information of the hundreds of projects and the $76 million and how all they're being spent. Details, POs, contracts, all those things. We've spent a lot of time, we researched what other communities were doing. We said, Lowell needs to be doing this in a bigger way. How do we find out what is being done elsewhere, and how do we make it even better? So we found what other similar communities were doing. We wanted to make it more transparent, and so that's exactly what we did. So we used that ClearGov and the ARPA website. Those two things together will give you, I can almost guarantee you, from every major city that we looked at in Massachusetts, Lowell is really doing an incredible job. And so all of the details are on there from that. Within those is the $3.3 million of the housing project. And because we don't have specifics on what that's going to be, it just talks about the general use, because that was done at a time, the housing trust was still in formation and all that sort of thing. Yeah, so once the details are worked out on some suggestions for us to spend this funds or decided by your trust, then that information, once it's towards the completed stages, will also go onto the website for transparency purposes.
So we talked about how do we find out about the projects that are in the pipeline or being thought about, contemplated. How do developers find out the inverse of that? How do people find out about us as part of their capital stack and availability for their projects?
Oh, okay, so I want to make sure I understand your question. So you're not talking about general ARPA projects with the rest of the money, you're only talking about the housing trust potential projects. So there, as of right now, it's at the beginning stages. We've been spending the past week looking at all of this and, communicating. I don't know when we started, having a discussion about this, but I am new to this, and I was like, okay, well, I'm looking at all of the pots of money that still need to be spent. We have this 3.3, and talked to other city staff, and they were like, all right, you gotta meet with George, he's great, and so that's kind of how all of this spun off. So there are a number of options. Many of them, I think, in some ways, take too long. So we're saying, okay, some of the ways, so for example, if you have, some people might have said, okay, we're gonna use this on a number of smaller projects, that we give them the money once they've built it. Given that the trust, has just come into being, and that we have such a limited time to spend it, that would be, I think, too difficult to recommend as a process, because it would have a very low chance of success. But there are a number of other options that we are exploring right now that once we are able to confirm through our due diligence, that we will, bring them to you.
We're in the process of researching some of those right now. That would be a good fit for it.
This is not a question, well, maybe part of the question, but also suggesting, because when it comes to affordable housing, I mean, it takes a lot to start the project, ranging from pre-development, and environmental review, feasibility study. So if there's a possibility that we can identify the criteria, okay, that funding, would it be, okay, will people start the project, pre-development, doing the environmental study, feasibility study, zoning, and all of that would, sorry.
Oh, no problem.
I thought I shut that off already. But, so that's what I'm getting at. Is there a possibility that we can identify there's a certain component that you, as a developer, can come in and submit the application for? Okay, can they use ARPA funding for the feasibility study? Can they use ARPA funding for Part 58 to do the study? Okay, environmental review, environmental assessment, and other component, engineering, all of that stuff.
So there is, so, in short, yes, but it would be tough to do that with the time that we have. If there's certain ways to do this that if you guys had already had an existing housing trust, that might have made sense. But there's no time like the present. It's really great that you have one. A lot of communities have housing trusts and unfortunately have almost no funding every year, if not any funding. Some are sitting on a ton of funding and they can't get any developers to actually use it. So you guys are in a excellent situation where you have this pot of money that we're sort of forced to spend very quickly because you'll know that you guys will have those results because there isn't any other choice. There are a number of ways that say, for example, if you were doing a funding entity that solicits projects, ideas to consider for funding. And let's pretend for a second that you only wanted to do those and not both. That would be similar to that example that was, I forget the town that was for.
That was,
Arlington.
Arlington.
So that was Arlington, and the way that they were able to get their funds out
Grants,
quickly,
right?
they started early, but those are also grants, meaning that not loans, it doesn't come back to you. So there's pros and cons to each different way. If we, were to say, okay, open it up, we're doing RFPs and we're just giving away money per unit, the pros would be is that we could use that money very quickly and do restrictive use deeds saying, for a minimum, in ARPA, it is a minimum of 20 years that need to be as a deed restriction that unit that was funded stays affordable. So it could be that you do something like that. The upside of that would be saying, okay, well, now we just made a bunch of affordable units with money that we otherwise wouldn't have. The downside to that would be that you wouldn't have recurring funds. So even though that is one of the faster ways to use the funds, we're exploring some of the more limited potential ways to have recurring revenue. And we want to make sure that we explore all of those first before going to that other option that is not necessarily easy either, but it is something that could be potentially faster because you could take somebody who had, maybe was already getting their occupancy permits for existing units, for example, and you could say, okay, you have 10 units, we'll pay you X amount of dollars if you make 3 of these units affordable at this percentage AMI, right? So those are all like different options that we have in our tool belt at this time, but we're trying to see if we can put something together that has that recurring payments coming back to you first. And in the event that, for whatever reason, from the ARPA compliance issues or due to, a number of other issues with looking into different options, that it makes sense to do something more along those lines, then we can pivot to whatever is necessary. We're ready to do that.
Thank you.
Yes, Bill.
Can I ask a question, if that's okay?
Go ahead, Kathy.
Oh,
Sorry about
Valerie,
that,
I'm
Kathy.
sorry.
Henry.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Go ahead, Kathy, you got the floor.
Okay, sorry. And first of all, I just want to say, thank you for, I'm happy to be on the trust with y'all, but I'm sorry I'm not there because I have a other board meeting in Boston, so my apologies, but I promise I will be there in person, God willing. I hope I could say that. Anyhow, clarifying question. So ARPA funds, doesn't that have to be allocated? And I apologize because I wasn't in the initial meetings and I haven't caught up as much. it has to be granted, right? You cannot look for a return back on ARPA funds, or am I misunderstanding what you're articulating?
Great question. Not necessarily in accounting, we use a lot of different words that, might mean a similar thing, but in ARPA specifically, they use the word obligation to only mean that you said that you were going to do, with a contract or agreement, a specific thing for a specific amount of money. I wasn't the person in charge of this at that time when that was done, but it was done for that 3.3. So and hopefully this answers your question on the allocated portion. So normally allocated would be the same, mean like a similar thing. And then in sort of ARPA world, the deadline would be that obligation deadline. But then when they are talking about expending the information, as the language of expending the funds, meaning the funds come out of your hands and into a developer or, what have you, for whatever it was that you did, because, you can potentially buy land or other things as well. So once the money leaves your trust, it's considered expended, right? So in terms of the last part of your question with regards to generating funding, that's meaning more along the lines of if we were to offer a low or 0% interest rate loan, as working with the developer saying, okay, whatever the scenario was, for 20 years, we're going to have this affordable housing deed restriction, and in exchange, we're going to have this loan that is at this percentage or 0%, and for this duration, which is a minimum of also those 20 years. So you would be getting less money back. It's not like you get the $3.3 million back all at the same time. You'd be getting those payments that are happening after the funds have been expended, almost like a mortgage payment that they're making.
So basically, if, for a scenario, if I'm a developer and I go to the housing trust and I say, I want to purchase this building and I plan on building X amount of units for affordable home ownership, right? Because that's what the trust is stating that they want to implement part of this trust. That's our goal. That's what I'm hearing. Now, the developer comes in and he says, okay, well, I have this is the plan, this is the performer, purchasing this parcel or X amount of units, using different funding sources. What would be our goal? Like, can we disperse those funds if they have a purchase and sale in hand? That would be quick, right? If someone already has a plan and we need to disperse these funds quickly, there's plenty of projects in Lowell and there's a lot of affordable home ownership projects that are in the works. So I know that we're on a time crunch. However, I feel like I think that we're in a unique position to be able to allocate those funds faster than we think we are. So I know that there is some worry about like, okay, we need to dispose of these, not dispose, but like, get this money to work. I feel like we do have projects that are in the pipeline, and I think we should have another conversation. But anyhow, I'm going on a tirade. But also, and another thing I do want to ask in regards to ARPA funds, I have read, but it has been a while. But we do have a program, back to what you said earlier in regards to CDBG funds, home funds. The city of Lowell has a down payment assistance program, which helps first-time home buyers with down payment assistance. However, it's a little restrictive in regards to the AMI, right? So it's at 80% home fund guidelines. But there's a potential to create a separate down payment assistance program that stays within our housing trust goals for the city of Lowell in promoting home ownership, affordable home ownership, that we will be able to help people add more money to a separate bucket or create a different form of down payment assistance program that's outside of home funds, because they're it's restrictive, right? And we can make it more fluid and more advantageous for people to be able to access those funds. That's another quick way of getting this money out the door.
Okay. Point well taken. Thank you, Kathy. Anybody have any discussion on that?
I'm just, on those down, it would be great to have more flexible, I think, down payment assistant programs. Similar to your question, Kathy, on how those become recurring revenue that eventually, I just have questions on how those work, right? Do you, if the house gets sold, do you get paid back, or, and how, I think greater flexibility would be fantastic.
Yeah, so
How
I
do
can
you
answer
just,
that.
What kind of assistance is there for judging the credit worthiness or the security of how you pick to make those funds available?
So the good thing, we already have a formula in place, right? So, true transparency and just excuse about myself and the organization as the executive director of MVHP. We've been administering the down payment assistance program for over 20 years with the city of Lowell through home funds, and there's an RFP process and all of that. However, how it works and the way that the city of Lowell has done this for many years is, if you get the down payment assistance through home funds and you sell the property, then there's a recapture. So you'll have to pay back the city. So basically, it's like, I'm helping you get in the door, but then we're gonna bring that money back into the city so we can continue to help other families. So there's already a structure in place. But the biggest thing is, the reason why people are not able to access those funds is because of our housing stock is so old, right? We know this in Massachusetts. And there's a really restrictive final rule that restricts many properties from getting those funds because of the condition of the homes. And it kind of similar to Section 8, which can talk about that. It's the HQS safety standards. So that makes it really restrictive. The other thing that makes it really restrictive is that it's 80% AMI. And to be honest, if you have someone that's making $65,000 and then you have someone else in the household that's making $25,000, based on the AMI list that Ta showed you all from the updated guidelines, that already blows them out of the water, even though they're at their AMI, they're still low income or modest income earners. The 100%, I love the idea of the 100% and being flexible with that, but just saying 100 or under. Like people under 100% won't be disqualified to receive those funds based on the model. But I think that, thinking that in Lowell, the housing stock, someone at 60%, we want to get people at 60% and lower in there, but that's layering different down payment assistance programs, how we can get them in. And I think this is a great opportunity to use those funds to create an additional down payment assistance program.
So, I just want to, say that I agree 100% on what she said. Okay, because if we can have the flexibility in providing additional first-time home buy assistance, it opened up the door because of the increasing cost of construction, driving up the price of a new home, and the gap between the home buyer, again, the affordability of what they can afford is getting so big right now. And this would help bridging the gap a little bit, not closing, but narrowing it down to the point that encouraging people to start thinking of, now I can afford to buy a house, and going through the program that she has. So I based on the experience, when you provide that and make it possible for people with low income, never dream of owning a home before, now open the door for them. When they buy a home, I have never seen anyone come back to public housing seeking affordable housing. They stay in that home and it change the trajectory of upward mobility. That's the fact. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Ta.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Any other discussion on that, down payment assistance programs? Anybody have any questions? Yes, Jessica?
I just wanted to add, just for reference, unfortunately, The middle name of ARPA is not flexibility. So I completely agree with everything that all of you said. I think all of those are excellent and definitely something that should be, it sounds like you guys all agree that this is a great priority for the Affordable Housing Trust. I would say, again, we haven't made determinations, but the potential risk of not using funds because we go down a certain road, start a certain program, get into contracts with this funding, and then aren't able to spend it and we're not able to pivot later is a very extreme risk for this set of funds, the 3.3
Okay.
million. So and unfortunately, I hate this because I want to say, sky's the limit. I would say there were a lot of options available. If you guys had already had an existing affordable housing trust in 2021, there are a number of flexibilities that they add in later years to the housing options for ARPA, all of which we've explored to the furthest extent. The issue would be is that some of these smaller dollar expenses, you would need to have so many of them and you would need to do it so quickly, and the requirements of the documentation is very high for each individual instance. And then we need to do documentation, close out, performance reports on each individual instance. So if you are trying to say, let's make sure that we utilize these funds quickly and efficiently, I would recommend that you do it in larger dollar amounts. But that doesn't mean that simultaneously, because this money will be gone next year and you guys will be back to the drawing board about what you want to do with next segments of money that will be coming into the trust. And it may mean that it takes some time for you guys to plan exactly what you want that to look like anyways. So this part isn't ARPA, this is just my opinion. But you can do these things concurrently. You could say next X amount of dollars that we have, I want to use it for XYZ, and you could do that with a number of initiatives and goals that you guys have for your housing trust. And I'm only speaking based off of ARPA, and but that being said, like I have done the research on some of the earlier things that were being done in 2021 was they call it ERA, the Emergency Rental Assistance Programs that you were allowed to run, and the HAF, the Homeowner Assistance Funds through ARPA as well. Those were things that for the communities that did those things, they instituted them so long ago. Most of them completed those processes well into 2023, 2024. So because and I'm sorry, this is sort of the theme, is that, and I think this is incredible because this money really, the story isn't, hey, we're late to the game. The story is we weren't in the game. And then through the leadership of the city council and the city manager and all of you, that we're now in a situation where we have an affordable housing trust so that moving forward, you can make all of these priorities and also align them to all of the documents that you have through the city of Lowell, like your Lowell Housing, Lowell Forward documents and all of those things. There's a ton of great ideas in all of those too.
Well, may I just want to add
course,
to?
yeah.
What I guess what we are talking about is not reinventing the wheel. It's already been established. The tool, we already have the tool, we have the mechanism to report and everything. What I'm saying is that what Kathy referring to, maybe, correct me, I'm wrong, is allowing first-time homebuyer assistance under the parameter allowed under ARPA funding. So it's restricted. It's not.
Right.
It's not flexible, but flexible within the low income, which is under 100% of median income, all the way down, because there's a certain funding that you have to fall within between 70% to 100% to achieve the maximum public funding benefit or so. But What I'm saying is that this is the people that meet ARPA funding criteria of low income to begin with.
Right.
That's the target population.
Right.
And we have the tool, have the system, have the manpower to do it, and they can wrap that up with that out pretty quick. Even though it's a small amount, but the number really count and add up. I mean, so you just state that we can do a same time, I can't say the word, at the same time.
Yeah, well, so some of the things to think about too, and if I may, if that's okay, is some background comparing to other larger communities that have affordable housing trusts also have a huge staff for the development of this and the execution, sometimes 5 or 6 people that are specifically in, affordable housing, and that's all that they do. We have a number of people who are doing that already in the city, well beyond full-time, two jobs worth of doing that. And so we've relied on a lot of their very excellent advice in taking a look at what the ARPA regulations are compared to their experience and the time that it would take to establish the rules for and then start, and then go through each of the applications that are brought forward, do the vetting process, do the review committee process, and then do the award process. And what they said to us was the concern would be is that all of those things, because it would be a new set of circumstances and new regulations that need to be done, and because we have such a short amount of time, that would bring a level of difficulty that might leave some additional risk to making sure that you use all those funds. However, we're not leaving anything on the table. We have not eliminated any potential projects whatsoever. We're trying to very quickly gather, okay, here are the pros and cons to all of the different scenarios, including homeowner assistant programs, which are very excellent and are allowable, and try to ascertain, do we have the staff to be able to do this? Because I don't run the, I'm doing the ARPA compliance for everybody else who's spending ARPA funds in different departments. It would be, a resource on the ARPA compliance piece. But the Housing Trust doesn't have full-time staff dedicated to this yet, which from reading your meeting minutes, that's something that you guys would like to expand to in the future, which is excellent. So normally, many communities will take 5+ years before they even start one project in their affordable housing trust, because they start to accrue funds from either CPA or they're sort of working on who's going to do this. Do we have somebody in our town or city that can do this? There are actually some affordable housing trusts that are sitting on a ton of money, just millions of dollars, because they can't spend their money because they don't have necessarily capacity and or their restrictions that they have in terms of, how low that the AMI is and other things aren't interesting enough for developers to say, because you got to remember, any unit that we say we're going to make affordable, if you're talking about a market rate developer and we're going to translate that into affordable housing, you're talking about somebody who might have been charging 50% plus more rent to be charging a much lower rent, and then they still need to make their numbers work. So those are some of the challenges, and I hate to have to be the messenger of a lot of these potential restrictions, but given the time sensitivity of all of this, and given that you haven't made any determinations yet on exactly how to use the funds, I wanted to, after talking with George, I wanted to come and be a resource and help in whatever way, shifting it so that we make sure that we use every penny of these funds in the quickest possible way.
Thank you.
So I would say, first of all, thank you again for coming tonight. It's been incredibly helpful, right? Your background and expertise and insights into ARPA. I think kind of what I've heard from the other members of the trust is, well, one, we haven't spent any dollars yet, so I think we don't want to preclude any options that may be available to us that we think are worthwhile goals, whether it's emergency rental assistance or the homeownership assistance, fully being cognizant of the deadlines and the dollars that we have to spend on the deadlines. I think it's then incumbent to get us some projects to review and approve, because, I mean, we meet once a month, and so we have 14 meetings to, get these dollars allocated, and, I think the projects need to start coming to us in a pretty timely and manner to kind of meet those deadlines, because, that's been the consistent theme tonight. It's kind of, we have a big deadline to meet, and so I think we need help from the city to kind of show us that pipeline of projects for us to consider.
The next
So the sooner you can get them to us, the sooner we'll review them and take a little pressure off of meeting those deadlines.
I would love that.
I have one question. You mentioned about that you're going to sit with George and go over different projects that might be opera eligible. Also, after you find out who's eligible, there's going to be an application process. Do we review those applications also, or does that go to another department?
No, the board makes a decision on the
Yeah,
application.
and-
We do.
Yeah,
So we're going to review all of that?
Yes.
and I want to clarify. So when I say we've discussed projects, not specific, this is the name of the developer and we're saying, okay, what if we did a program like this? What if we had these particular rules? So absolutely not. That is something that is within your purview. It would be that we would be saying, okay, here is some things that we think are the easiest and most effective way to get affordable housing units to the city of Lowell that gives us the minimum amount of risk that it won't be spent before the deadline. And we'll have a number of examples that we give to you, and then there can be some discussion. It might be that through this process, one or two really stands out as sort of the standalone recommendations. And so I'll leave that to George and to the city manager and Connor to be the one who has those preferences. I'm the rule lady. But those will be decisions that you guys will make together as a team. And if it was a project that required, say, an RFP with different applications to review, or something like a homeowner assistance fund where there's individuals as well, that would be something that would be in your purview to review. Unless you delegated it to a staff member with a certain set of goals.
Folks, any other discussion on that? Any other questions?
Nope, none here.
Okay, we'll move down our agenda. So our next meeting's on October 15th, 2025, which will be the third Wednesday in October. Is there any other new business we need to discuss? Any questions?
None here.
Kathy?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for your expertise. I wish I was in the room. It was really enlightening to just hear all of your knowledge, because Harper, I swear you need a MBA or a case study. I mean, it's amazing. So thank you so much. And thank you to the board members as well for welcoming me.
Thank you, Kathy. And thank you, Jessica. You're extremely valuable today. We needed you big time. Thank you.
Of course,
And the
anytime.
rest of the board, thank you.
Happy to help.
Okay, can I just get a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Motion to adjourn the meeting by Todd Chow, seconded by Eric Nelson. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Bye, guys.
We needed you. Thank you for it.